Welcome to Mystic Shadows TV, where the line between reality and the unknown blurs. Today's story is a chilling tale of a boy, his grandfather, and the dark secrets hidden in a seemingly ordinary house in the heart of downtown Boston. Get ready for a journey into the unexplained and the terrifying. Let's dive into this unsettling story. In the heart of downtown Boston, a 10-year-old boy named Ethan had just moved into a historic townhouse on Beacon Hill, with his grandfather James following the sudden passing of his parents. Ethan's grandfather, a stern but loving man, had taken him in to provide some stability, enrolling him in the nearby Boston Latin School, the oldest public school in America. The school was known for its rigid discipline and equally dark past, which Ethan had heard rumors about from other children. One evening, as the wind howled through the narrow streets, Ethan heard a faint whispering coming from the walls of his room. At first, he thought it was just the wind, but the whispers soon grew louder, turning into distinct words. Terrified, Ethan ran downstairs to his grandfather, who was sitting in his study, surrounded by old books and ancient artifacts. James looked up, his face pale as if he had expected this. James then revealed the secret he had kept from Ethan. The house was once owned by the Parker family, who were rumored to be involved in occult practices and mysterious deaths. James had discovered an old diary in the attic, filled with strange symbols and Latin incantations. Determined to understand the whispers, Ethan sneaked into the attic later that night and began reading the diary. The pages spoke of rituals, dark spirits, and a curse placed on the Parker family for their forbidden practices. Suddenly, the room grew cold and the air thickened. Ethan felt a presence behind him. He turned to see a woman in a long, tattered black dress, her eyes hollow and her mouth wide open in a silent scream. Ethan screamed and dropped the diary, but the figure moved closer. Her mouth began to form words Ethan could not understand, a language that felt ancient and filled with malice. Just as the woman reached for him, James burst into the attic, holding a silver cross and chanting in Latin. The ghostly figure shrieked and disappeared into a cloud of smoke. After that night, the whispers stopped, but Ethan could never forget the figure's hollow eyes and the strange language. He wanted to know more about the curse, but James warned him against it, saying some doors should never be opened. A week later, while playing in the basement, Ethan found a hidden door behind an old bookshelf. The door was locked with heavy chains and had strange symbols carved into the wood. Ignoring his grandfather's warning, Ethan decided to unlock the door. He found an old key among his grandfather's things, but as soon as he turned the key, a cold wind blew through the basement, extinguishing the light. Behind the door was a small hidden chamber filled with strange artifacts, candles, skulls, and a large pentagram drawn on the floor. In the center, a figure in a hooded robe sat silently, its back turned to Ethan. The figure was whispering in the same ancient language Ethan had heard from the ghost. Ethan took a step back, but the floorboards creaked loudly under his feet, echoing in the silent basement. The figure suddenly stopped whispering and slowly began to turn its head toward Ethan. Ethan felt a wave of cold terror wash over him, paralyzing him in place as the figure's eyes came into view. Empty black voids that seemed to pull him in. Before Ethan could react, the figure lunged at him with a horrifying screech, its hands outstretched like claws. Ethan stumbled back, falling to the ground, but as he looked up, he saw his grandfather standing at the entrance of the basement, a large, ancient-looking book in his hands. James began chanting from the book, and the figure shrieked in pain, retreating back into the shadows. The walls of the chamber began to tremble, and the candles flared up, casting eerie shadows on the walls. The figure screamed one last time before dissolving into a thick black smoke that quickly dissipated. Ethan rushed to his grandfather, who looked pale and exhausted, and asked him what had happened. James revealed that the figure was the spirit of one of the Parker family members who had bound themselves to the house through a dark ritual. He explained that the ritual had been left unfinished, and the spirit was trying to complete it to break free and cause havoc. James confessed that he had tried to protect Ethan from the dark history of the house, but now knew they must leave immediately. As they packed their belongings, they could hear distant whispers coming from the walls, growing louder and more insistent. Just as they were about to leave, the lights flickered and the door slammed shut with a deafening bang. Ethan felt a cold hand on his shoulder and turned to see a ghostly figure of a young girl with dark, empty eyes staring back at him. But before he could scream, James recited the final line from his book, and the room was filled with a blinding white light. When the light faded, they found themselves standing outside the house, the front door now firmly shut behind them. They hurried away, never looking back, vowing never to speak of what had happened in that house again. Yet, as they reached the end of the street, Ethan heard one last whisper, his name, spoken softly from the shadows. What would you do if you found yourself trapped in a house with a dark past? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell to never miss another chilling tale. Until next time, keep your lights on and your doors locked, because you never know what lurks in the shadows.